Welcome to the Library of Awakening, hosted by CyberX, a space where curiosity meets courage and ideas come alive. Here we explore the thoughts that challenge, inspire, and sometimes even unsettle us, because growth often begins with discomfort. So, welcome to the journey. May this space inspire you to ask questions, explore the unknown, and most importantly, to awaken. This is the Library of Awakening.
Alrighty, Library of Awakening family, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode. Hopefully, you all are doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are going to be diving into the Elite Agenda and Global Superpower section in Library of Awakening inside the CyberX Discord, tapping into The World's Most Dangerous Secret Societies by James Jackson. Now, there are so many books that are going to go hand in hand that we're going to read in later episodes that tie into this specific book here. If we go over to the book today that we're going to be reading and tapping into, we're going to dive into chapter 3, the Illuminati. But this book also discusses and talks about the Knights Templar, the Committee of the 300, the Skull and Bones Society. And so, heading back over to the Discord just to show you guys some books in the future that we're going to be diving into that are going to coexist with today's episode, just so that way eventually you all can be on the lookout. We have the 13 Satanic Bloodlines Paving the Road to Hell by Robert D. Reuter. This book is going to be very interesting as well. If we come over here to this book, this one has a bunch of chapters and good, valuable information inside of it. This is, again, the 13 Satanic Bloodlines. Just looking at the chapters here, you guys can see there's a chapter on the Illuminati. So I would like to do a second video breakdown after reading the chapter on the Illuminati today and see what this book talks about in regards to the Illuminati and see if we can piece anything together. Talks about the mass media, the Great White Brotherhood, religious practices of the elite, making money out of nothing, the movie industry, a dumbed down population, the music industry, one world leader, and I mean, the list goes on. So this one's going to be very juicy when we dive into it. Coming back over here to the Library of Awakening, we also have the story of the Committee of the 300 that I want to dive into with you guys eventually, and then also the top 13 Illuminati bloodlines. Now, this book we're definitely going to revisit because going over today's chapter in the World's Most Dangerous Secret Societies in the Illuminati section that we're going to read today, there is going to be a portion. I'm not going to go into too much detail on all of the bloodlines today, but it does mention all 13 of the bloodlines in the chapter that we're going to be reading today. And then coming over to this book, the top 13 Illuminati bloodlines, this book goes into each of these bloodlines in detail. Here are all those bloodlines here, which we'll briefly touch on in today's video breakdown. So if you guys enjoy these types of videos, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. Don't forget that at any point in time you guys want to access our vast library of Awakening, you guys can always head over to cyberxtrading.com and you guys can tap in. All of these books are available at your fingertips. I mean, even just looking at the Elite Agenda section that we're going to be diving into today, you have conspiracy theories, the Golden Dawn, the new Totalitarians. I mean, it's an insane amount of knowledge that is inside our private CyberX Discord, all available for you guys to enlighten yourselves and just further your education on global superpowers, elite agendas, expanding your consciousness, human psychology, wealth building. I mean, the list is never ending. All right. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Again, we're going to be reading The World's Most Dangerous Secret Societies, the Illuminati, Freemasons, Bilderberg Group, Knights Templar, the Jesuits. These are all topics in the future that we are going to consistently discuss because a lot of the books that we have in the Elite Superpower section consist of information on all of these groups here. This is by James Jackson. Let's jump in. So starting off, it says, the Illuminati. The very name is enough to cause fear and a revolution in the heart of any sensible, free-thinking individual. Rumored to be the impetus behind both the American and French revolutions of the 18th century as well as both world wars. And as I'm reading thoroughly through this, again, it's going to be very interesting in future books that we're going to read to see how some of the information coexists or conflicts with different authors' perspectives and point of views and research. The notion of a secretive shadow organization of puppet masters pulling the strings behind every social movement, progressive or not, and every mass calamity has been the source of mass speculation and paranoia throughout history. How did an obscure Masonic offshoot established by a rogue Jesuit priest in 1776 come to encapsule world power, the likes of which is beyond the wildest dreams of even the modest, greedy of would-be dictators? The truth is, as far as the Illuminati is concerned, very little bedrock evidence for their continued proliferation can be found. The ultimate nature of a secret society is just that, a secret, and perhaps no other secret society has been so successful in shrouding themselves in mystery, deceit, and misinformation than the Order of the Illuminati. So successful that millions of Americans don't even realize that they hold their trademark right in the folds of their wallet, the dollar bill. Look at the backside and observe the enigmatic eye in the pyramid, crowned by the banner Novus Ordo Seclorum, or the New World Order. If that's not enough to convince you of the ultimate plot of their design, then read on. What you refuse to admit just might haunt you in the end. The story of the Illuminati begins in Bavaria in 1770, quite a while ago. A Jewish convert to Roman Catholicism, Adam Weishaupt, was elected as professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt, a chair traditionally held by a Jesuit priest. Despite a subsequent conversion to the Jesuit faith, the 22-year-old Weishaupt, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Weishaupt, still found himself a victim of repeated rebukes and character assassination by Jesuit colleagues and superiors. Rather than retaliate, the prank-minded Weishaupt decided to form an exclusive cadre of so-called enlightened ones, or perfectibilists, literally the perfected ones. On May 1st, 1776, coincidentally, the pagan holiday of Beltane, modeled after the degrees and structure of Freemasonry. The overall goal of the Illuminati was to establish a free and just society without ecclesiastical or political tyranny, and both men and women. Dang, I freaking nailed that word, y'all. Are you kidding me? Come on now. Or political tyranny in which both men and women were considered equal, and church authorities had no say. To this end, they allegedly sought freedom of speech and a complete overthrow of the existing power structures, receiving funding from the House of Rothschild, which, again, we'll get into these bloodlines in a couple of video breakdowns down the road, both historically and currently the leading financiers in the global banking and forging alliances with Freemasonry, whose degree systems they adopted into a series of 10 symbolic levels: novitiate, Minerval, illuminated, Minerval, illuminatus minor, illuminatus, dang, that is a hard one to say 5 times fast, illuminated Minerval, illuminatus minor, illuminatus major, illuminatus drigens, priest, regent, magus, and rex. The initial 6 degrees appeared steep in the biblical and Kabbalistic mysteries of Freemasonry. Indeed, it is from these initial degrees that Weishaupt's Illuminati structure found the strongest support from existing Masonic lodges. However, at the level of priests, the candidate was required to renounce and sever all Masonic ties, wearing an oath of devotion solely to the Illuminati. The degree of regent extended this renunciation from conventional political and religious structures even further, with the candidate formally denouncing all ties to social, religious, and political affiliations, and was expected to extend the influence and aims of the Illuminati even further. subverting and infiltrating those very structures they denounced, a practice reminiscent of the Hashishans covered in Chapter 1. The order soon grew support from some of the leading political, literary, and social figures of the time, including Ferdinand of Brunswick, foreign diplomat Xavier von Zwack, the writers of Wolfgang von Goethe and Gottfried Herder, Duke Karl August of Saxe-Weimar, philosopher George Hegel, mystic Karl von Eckartschatz, the Clause of Committee de Saint-Germain, and numerous princes, dukes, and barons from Bavaria and beyond. Come on, you guys can't blame me. That one is whack. Come on now. Look at that one. Yet in 1782, delegates from a Bavarian Masonic conference, who had apparently been denied entrance to the upper echelon of the order, formally denounced the Illuminati. Pressure from both the Catholic hierarchy and Masonic lodges forced then ruler Karl Theodor to ban the Illuminati altogether, and the order was announced as dissolved in 1785. Yet there is substantial evidence that this dissolution was simply a ruse to hide the activities of the order internationally, particularly in France and the nascent America, where Illuminati tenets and doctrines had a substantial influence on both revolutions. It is known that one of the architects of the French Revolution, Jean-Joseph Monod, was a member, and there is strong evidence that Thomas Paine, John Hancock, Alexander Hamilton, and Thomas Jefferson were secretly affiliated with the order. Weishaupt himself fled to Gotha, where he was granted amnesty by Duke Ernst II, and from which he continued his base of operations until his death in 1811. As noted previously, Weishaupt drew initial support from the banking dynasty of the Rothschilds, and there is considerable evidence that members of the family took formal initiation to the lodge at its early stages. Other merchants and bankers were well known to have connections to the lodge, including the Swiss Jean Gaspard, Schweizer, and the Austrian Ludwig von Goldman. However, it is through the Rothschilds, whose scion, Mayer Rothschild, is known to have stated, "Give me control over a nation's currency, and the law is meaningless," that Weishaupt drew his strongest financial and social support, a family dynasty that perhaps not so coincidentally were responsible for financing the Napoleonic Wars, the establishment of the U.S. Federal Reserve in 1913, and currently owned an estimate of 220 banks, including the Bank of England, the Bank of Israel, and the People's Bank of China, as well as controlling interest in such corporations as Microsoft and IBM, which, mind you, for those of you all who don't know, 85% of the world's financial mainframe or infrastructure runs on IBM mainframes. And it is from the Rothschilds that the Illuminati perpetuates its most insidious scheme of all, a dynasty consisting of 13 distinct bloodlines. At this point, the reader will probably ask, freedom, equality, liberty? Isn't that the basis of our modern society? What is so insidious about freedom of speech and justice for all? And truth be told, the ideals of freedom, opportunity, and discourse, ostensibly purposed by the historical Illuminati, are noble and commendable. It is well worth noting that Weishaupt was noted an admirer of the philosopher Baruch Spinoza, and his fundamental text, the Ethics. Ideally, a free market would uphold legitimate and fair trade, mutually beneficial to consumers and financiers. Given that the Rothschild dynasty currently own an estimate of half the global wealth, the notion of international free market economics in practice is simply erroneous. Given their strong prominence with similar global conglomerates of secretive elite financiers such as the Bilderberg Foundation, and their historically documented practices of financing almost every imaginable war during modern history, as well as their current publicly stated support of Zionist causes in Israel and abroad. Even the most skeptical reader should smell a rat behind the myth of free trade. Let's instead view the Rothschilds for what they are: robber barons of the most nefarious caliber imaginable, and highly successful ones at that. The initial statutes of the Illuminati state that their goal is to put an end to the machinations of the purveyors of injustice, to control them without dominating them. And while that may have been true in a progressively enlightened 18th century European framework, time has shown again and again just how quickly those ideals were corrupted by parties seeking absolute greed and absolute power. These days, the agenda behind the Illuminati's machinations include the establishment of a one world government, complete with one world military and police and a one centralized currency. This is the true promise of the Novus Ordo Seclorum, mentioned previously in the chapter, and both the establishment of NATO, the United Nations, and more recently, the European Union, are tangible reminders of the success of the Illuminati's mission. The establishment of a centralized bank controlling all financial transactions. At the heart of the Illuminati, greed is as critical as power and control. The existence of summits such as the G8, G12, Bilderberg-sponsored conferences, as well as the recent economic breakdowns that have plagued so much of the United States and Europe, all bear hallmarks of classic Illuminati design. Number 3. Advanced microchip monitoring of citizens as needed for surveillance and control. I feel like that is exactly what is happening and ongoing right now as we speak. This technotronic method of monitoring, as predicted by the Illuminati member, I'm not even going to attempt to butcher that one, in his book Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era, is just one step closer to the ultimate control of the Illuminati, which began with the establishment of the Social Security identification system and barcode product identification. In time, this surveillance has also included digital monitoring of internet activity, widespread wiretapping techniques, and covert government intelligence agencies. An absolute totalitarian state in which freedom of expression is prohibited and dissenting opinion will be stifled. Widespread physical character and assassinations of those who have set out to expose the Illuminati schemes has been well documented. Failing to submit to Illuminati designs, for example, the U.S. Select Service System, IRS review, and even the Registry of Motor Vehicles can and have resulted in fines and imprisonment. Other more extreme cases have included murder, blackmail, extortion, bankruptcy, and arson. It is the fourth point that is positively critical in assessing the dangers of the Illuminati. They are not merely content with a long and deliberate misinformation campaign, often disseminating conflicting information and supposed leaks about their operations, so that none but the most discerning observer can distinguish between falsehood and reality, but actively seek to silence dissent through physical torture and assassination. This methodology was best noted by the assassination of both President Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy, both men whom, if not directly aware of the designs and plans of the Illuminati, certainly saw a reform in government and economic policy directly in opposition to Illuminati doctrine. Other mysterious deaths the Illuminati may be responsible for included the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, which precipitated the start of World War I, the assassination of Mohandas Gandhi, the deaths of Jimmy Hoffa, Marilyn Monroe, and Jane Mansfield, the unexplained cancer of Bob Marley, and even recent deaths of erstwhile King of Pop Michael Jackson. Both the internal and external symbolism of the Illuminati is rife with occult and esoteric emblems and metaphors, of which the all-seeing eye in the pyramid is perhaps the most notorious. The enigmatic device has entered the popular culture as one of the most enduring symbols, appearing everywhere from previously noted dollar bills to popular novels, movies, comic books, and video games. The ubiquity of this design has led to a public infatuation with Illuminati symbology, often unwittingly, which may indeed be part of their design after all. In more recent times, Illuminati-based insignia has become one of the most hottest trends in the music industry. with artists such as Jay-Z, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, George Clinton, Rihanna, Madonna, Nicki Minaj, and Tool, to name but a few, all openly displaying distinctively Illuminati-based symbology in videos, album covers, live shows, and promotional photos, be it wittingly or unwittingly. Is this a deliberate courting of controversy? A sort of metaploy wink to the public fascination with the legend and lore of the Illuminati? Or all part of a carefully constructed plan to lure younger and more imprisonable minds into faithfully adhering to Illuminati schematics? Last but not least, covering the bloodlines of the Illuminati. As mentioned earlier, the Illuminati is headed by 13 distinct bloodlines. It is worth noting that the fascination with perpetuating bloodlines is shared in common with the previous chapters introducing the Priory of Sion, which speculation and theories of these bloodlines have been made, relating them to everything from the 12 tribes of Israel mentioned in the book of Genesis, including the lost 13th tribe, commonly held to be the Khazar tribe, to the 12 signs of the zodiac. Given the many prominent figures in the government, entertainment, and culture are commonly held to hold some degree of involvement with the Illuminati. It is fair to say that the membership is not exclusive to these bloodlines alone. Nonetheless, the prominence of these bloodlines and their respective roles in finance and politics demand strong observance from those actively pursuing research into the Illuminati mechanism. Now, as I'm reading through 1 through 13 of these bloodlines, I'm not going to read the entirety of each paragraph just to save time for the sake of this particular video breakdown. I'm just going to read the first and maybe second sentence of each annotation just to give you kind of a gist. So we're scratching the surface here. And then obviously, of course, in later video breakdowns, we will dive into the top 13 Illuminati bloodlines and cover these a little bit more in detail in future videos. So starting off here, number 1. The Rockefeller bloodline. As one of the most obvious and visible bloodlines in the Illuminati genetic strand, the Rockefeller bloodline is overseen currently by David Rockefeller. I'm not too entirely sure if that's true anymore. I think he might have passed away, but I could be mistaken. Anyways, moving on. Whose interests include Chase Manhattan Bank, General Electric, Mitsubishi, ExxonMobil. The 99-year-old Rockefeller also has been known to have strong ties to the CIA and the National Security Agency, and is both a founding member of the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations, as well as a serving member advisory group of the Bilderberg Foundation. The Rothschild bloodline. As previously mentioned in this chapter, the Rothschilds are of the oldest banking families in international history and were directly behind the establishment of the Federal Reserve and both the price of gold as well as its devaluation in 1971, when President Nixon ordered the cancellation of the convertibility of the US dollar to gold, historically known as the Nixon shock. If you guys want to read more about the involvement of the Rothschild bloodline and the banking dynasties and the Federal Reserve, go check out the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, which I'm assuming that eventually in the future we will get into a few chapters on the Library of Awakening. Number 3, the Kennedy bloodline. A Celtic bloodline with strong ties to Freemasonry and Scottish aristocracy, and as emigration occurred toward the New World of America, organized crime, and the mafia. The Astor bloodline. Founded by John Jacob Astor, a German-born Führer, trader, merchant, investor, and American emigre active in the 18th and 19th centuries, the Astor family, once synonymous with the most elite of the newly moneyed, floating in and out of America in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly in New York, appear to have gone out of vogue. The Bundy bloodline. With strong ties to the world of government, research, education, science, philanthropy, and Yale's secretive Skull and Bones Society. So there's a mention of the Skull and Bones. Introducing that to you guys. We'll definitely get into that in later chapters in the future. The Bundy family isn't one of the more recognizable names to many Americans. The Collins bloodline, an enigmatic bloodline with strong ties to military intelligence, law, literature, education, and strangely enough, the church. The DuPont bloodline, coming in at number 7, thus known as heirs to the vast chemical and pharmaceutical dynasty established in 1802, as gunpowder mills by French immigrant E.I. Dupont or DuPont. This bloodline also maintained strong connections to the American government, with numerous paid representatives serving in key positions in the House of Representatives. The Freeman bloodline, the Lee bloodline, the Onassis bloodline. Coming in at number 11, the Reynolds bloodline. Number 12, the Russell bloodline. And last but not least, the Van Duyn bloodline. Other prominent families who have been known to intermarry into these bloodlines have included the Ford family, the Vanderbilt family, the Hearst family, the Carnegie family, and the Doge family. One of the ultimate goals of any secret society, as stated previously, is the perpetuation of secrets. And as the penultimate covert secret society, the Illuminati have nearly 250 years and countless wealth behind them, enabling them to specialize in psychological operations and misinformation tactics of the most advanced sort. Perhaps it's all more fitting that the very term Illuminati translate to the enlightened ones. In Latin, the name Lucifer comes from the word lux ferro, or bearer of light. Outside of the above-mentioned bloodlines, there is no accurate account of Illuminati membership. There are no official records of meetings, no official membership rosters, and no record proceedings. They are indeed the archetypal secret society. Yet over the years, numerous names have been brought up in conjunction with the Illuminati, names which, upon close examination, reveal common threads that defy mere coincidence and take on a decidedly more sinister hue. Here it goes on to give names of some mentioned Illuminati members. And that is it for Chapter 3 of The World's Most Dangerous Secret Societies. Now, again, this is all just an introductory level, surface level information to start to introduce to you guys what we're going to be reading in depth into inside the Library of Awakening here on YouTube. As always, many blessings to you guys. Hopefully you all enjoyed. Remember, these videos do take time to make, so we do appreciate it if you would smash that thumbs up button and subscribe to the platform. It is free to do so. Remember that if you guys want access to thousands of esoteric, psychological self-mastery, wealth building, trading psychology, elite agenda, expanded consciousness books, you guys can always head over to the CypherXTrading.com website. You can tap in with us inside the private CypherX Discord in the Library of Awakening section. We'd love to have you on the team. Many blessings to you guys. With that in mind, I will see you guys in upcoming episodes ahead. Be cognizant, be aware out there, stay blessed. Everybody have a happy holiday stretch in the coming days ahead. Be safe. And I will see you guys in the next video breakdown.
I know some of the perspectives that I share may be as challenging for you as they once were for me. But isn't that the beauty of exploration? Every perspective, no matter how unconventional, has something valuable to contribute to it if it's shared. Knowledge is not absolute. It's a living, breathing phenomena, shaped and reshaped over time. The important thing is not always be right, but to always be curious. Explore freely, share boldly, and learn deeply. And don't rely solely on others to validate your discoveries. Stand firm in integrity, even in the face of criticism. Remember that growth always means embracing the humility to admit when we're wrong. Learning from our errors is not a setback, it's the very essence of our progress. So, welcome to the journey. May this space inspire you to ask questions, explore the unknown, and most importantly, to awaken. This is the Library of Awakening,